All right, let's go. Compromise, the Constitutional Convention. Compromise is going to be the main theme of what we discuss in this video. So we start with the purpose, well, at least the stated purpose, was to revise the Articles. And that's a quote from Congress as they instructed the delegates in what they were supposed to do. It didn't exactly work out that way because a lot of people there, they wanted to get rid of the Articles altogether. Excuse me. All right, so at the Constitutional Convention, two main plans stand out. You have the Virginia plan and the New Jersey plan. Virginia plan favored the large states. It wanted to have a stronger national government, whereas the New Jersey plan favored small states. It wanted to amend the Articles, because remember, in the Articles, it had to be unanimous to amend. You needed a large majority to pass anything. Individual states all had one vote each, so that was all good for small states, so they wanted to keep things the way they were. The Great Compromise is going to compromise between those two plans. It's also known as, by the way, the Connecticut Compromise. It established a bicameral, meaning two houses, legislature. So we're not going to have just one, and it's not going to be like the Virginia plan wanted. Virginia plan wanted both houses to be based on population. But this is going to set up where the House is based on population, but the Senate is two per state, no matter how big or large that state is. So the House favors large states, the Senate favors small states. So how did this compromise come about? Well, you had something called the Grand Committee, and these are people in the Constitutional Convention who negotiated the Great Compromise. And the way that they did it was they convinced the large states to go along with this, because remember, large states wanted both houses to be done by population. They said, all right, look, give the small states the Senate, make it equal there, and what we'll do in return is we'll make all the tax and revenue bills, which are pretty much the most important kind of bills, right? We're going to make them originate in the House so that the population, the large states, you guys will have a good advantage there. And so, again, compromise, neither side gets everything they wanted, but both get something that they can live with. The Electoral College is also an example of compromise. There were some people who wanted Congress to vote directly for the president, so it would be Congress to choose the president. And others were like, no, that's not good. We need people to choose the president. Well, we didn't do either. Congress doesn't choose the president, and neither do we. And still to this day, we do not directly elect the president. Rather, the Electoral College does. It creates like this kind of barrier in between the people and the presidency, but it's not Congress. So we'll talk more about how exactly the Electoral College works in a future unit. But for now, we want to focus on the idea that it was a compromise between two opposing groups. Now we're going to get to two really kind of infamous compromises. We have the Three-Fifths Compromise. This was the idea that each slave would count as 3/5 of a person when it comes to representation for the House of Representatives. So southern states here, they were like, oh no, slaves aren't people, no, they're population. But then when it comes to the issue of, well, now we need to count your population for representation, now the South is like, no, we didn't say that. They're totally people, they count. But they're also property that doesn't have any rights. So they end up with a Three-Fifths Compromise because obviously the North didn't want all the slaves to count because that would have hurt them. So every 5 slaves would count as 3 people for population purposes. This gave the South a huge advantage electorally and in Congress. Another major issue, compromise on the importation of slaves. So the result of this compromise is that Congress would agree that they wouldn't stop the slave trade for 20 years until 20 years had passed from the ratification, so 1809. And the southern states said, all right, after that 20 years, we'll agree to stop the slave trade if the northern states agree to return fugitive slaves. And so this is what occurred. The slave trade did end in 1809, but you can see with the fugitive slave element of this, the setting of the Civil War that will be coming. Finally, we have the amendment process. So the idea that they weren't going to do a perfect job, so they needed to be able to amend the Constitution. So you have 2 methods. By far the most common one is the first method, in which 2/3 vote in both the houses of Congress to propose amendment, and then 3/4 of the state legislatures are needed in order to ratify that amendment. So there are some contemporary debates that still last to this day as a result. 3 questions. What is the proper role of the central government? Should it be stronger? Should it be weaker? More vigorous? Less vigorous? What are the rightful powers of state government? So what should they still be able to do? And what about the people? What rights are retained by the people? So these are things that were debated then and are still definitely debated to this day. If this video helps you at all, please subscribe to my channel. Hit the like button for me. I appreciate it so much. This has been a La Money production.